In this video, we're going to talk about the central pump of the circulatory system, and that is the heart. So in our previous video, we had learned about open versus closed circulatory systems, and here we're going to look at the closed circulatory system of mammals. We call this the cardiovascular system. Now, every organism must exchange materials with its environment. The purpose of the circulatory system is to facilitate this exchange, along with distributing chemicals in the body. All but the simplest of animals have circulatory systems with three main components: a central pump, which is the heart, a vascular system, which is going to be the series of blood vessels, and then finally the circulating fluid, which is the blood. So these are the three main components of our cardiovascular system, or circulatory system, that we'll be looking at. Our central pump is our heart, and the human heart is a muscular organ about the size of your fist. It's located directly under your breastbone. And there are four chambers: two upper chambers known as atria, and two lower chambers known as ventricles. A total of four chambers. In diagrams that you'll see of the cardiovascular system and of the heart, you'll notice that some of these chambers and vessels will be colored blue in color, some will be colored red in color. This is to designate whether the blood in those chambers and vessels is considered to be oxygenated or deoxygenated. Now, a very important point: it's not that deoxygenated blood actually turns blue. In fact, deoxygenated blood is a dark maroon, so still a reddish color, whereas oxygenated blood is a much brighter red. But don't think that because these chambers and vessels are colored blue, that your blood actually turns blue. The chambers on the top of the heart are the atria, and the chambers on the bottom of the heart are the ventricles. And in birds and mammals, there are two of each. The chambers on the right side of the heart pump the blood to the pulmonary circuit, whereas the chambers on the left side of the heart pump the blood to the systemic circuit. Now, if we go back one slide, back to that diagram of the heart, one thing I want you to notice is that as you're looking at this diagram, you might think, oh wait, the chambers on the right are labeled left, and the chambers on the left are labeled right. What's going on here? Well, keep in mind that whenever you see diagrams of the cardiovascular system, it's the patient's right or left that they're referring to, not yours. So if you were looking at your patient, the patient's left side of the body would be on your right, and vice versa. So it's not that there's an error in the labeling of these diagrams. It's the right atrium and the right ventricle which pumps the blood to the pulmonary circuit or to the lungs, whereas it's then the left atrium and the left ventricle that end up pumping blood to the systemic circuit. And so, how does that pumping work? Well, the reason why this works is because of a series of contractions known as the cardiac cycle. Also, there are a series of one-way valves between the chambers of the heart and also between the chambers of the heart and the blood vessels. During the cardiac cycle, the heart relaxes and contracts regularly. Diastole is the relaxation phase of the heart cycle. It's at this stage of the cardiac cycle that the ventricles are relaxing and filling with blood. Systole is the contraction phase. Systole is actually a two-part contraction. First, the upper chambers of the heart contract. These are the atria, followed shortly thereafter by the lower chambers of the heart, or the ventricles. Now, as soon as the atria have finished contracting and the ventricles begin to contract, the valves connecting the atria and ventricles close shut, and that's to prevent any of the blood from flowing backwards back into the heart. As the ventricles contract, the blood is forced through another set of valves out into the arteries. Now, during diastole, when the ventricles are relaxing and refilling with blood, those valves leading to the arteries close to ensure that none of that blood ends up flowing backwards either. So it's through this repeated cycle of the beating of the heart and these one-way valves that ensure that with each heartbeat that blood is flowing both through the pulmonary and the systemic circuit. There's a specific region of the heart known as the pacemaker. Or the SA node, the sinoatrial node, which sets the tempo of the heartbeat. The pacemaker itself is composed of specialized muscle tissue in the wall of the right atrium. And it's this patch of muscle tissue that generates the impulse that is first spread through the atria, and then after that spread to the ventricles. This is what gives systole that two-phase contraction process. The impulse sent by the pacemaker produces electrical currents that can be detected by electrodes placed on the skin. If a doctor or a cardiologist wants a recording of these impulses, then they would schedule an electrocardiogram. Often referred to by its acronym as an ECG or an EKG. While EKG is used most commonly, this is actually the acronym for the German name for this procedure. In German, cardio starts with a K, and this technique was developed by a German physician. In certain kinds of heart disease, the heart's electrical control fails to maintain a normal, steady rhythm. In this case, if the heart is not able to maintain its own series of electrical impulses, then the remedy is an artificial pacemaker. The artificial pacemaker is installed under the skin. However, it's installed outside of the rib cage typically. And the reason for this is that any surgeries which require the opening of a patient's rib cage would have much longer recovery times and a higher risk of complications. So by implanting the pacemaker outside of the rib cage, any further maintenance or battery replacement can be done with surgeries that are far less intrusive than if this pacemaker was closer to the heart itself. Instead, just some electrical wires known as leads can run from the pacemaker to the parts of the heart that need to receive that impulse. In our next video, we're going to talk about the blood vessels, the vascular system. See you in the next video.